Good day, everybody. So this recording will be addressing study unit 3 of your study guide. Okay, I'm sure that you can all see the screen. Very welcome to our session. At the end of this unit, or what we should be focusing on in the unit, you should be able to identify conduct that amounts to absenteeism. You should be able to conduct an elementary investigation into an alleged absenteeism incident and make a recommendation for further action based on the specific incident. You should be able to identify and use the different terms and concepts relevant to the investigation of absenteeism, and you should be able to explain the importance of clear company guidelines and their link to proving misconduct. But let's pause a moment and just consider the word absenteeism. So it's not like the other terms that we have traditionally been using. This one has a suffix at the end, an ISM at the end of the word. Now, when this is used at the end of a word, it's there to indicate that the word represents a specific practice, a system, or a philosophy. So in this instance, the ism in the word is designed so that we can understand that this is a specific practice of being absent from work. This is very important because it means that it's not just a once-off incident. It is really something that the person is doing time and time again. Now, any employer expects his employees to show up for work on time every day or every weekday or every day they are expected. Some people are expected to work over weekends as well. This should not have to be stipulated in your contract of employment. In addition, an employer expects a certain amount of output from an employee per day. So in other words, a certain amount of work. And if a person lazes around, spends too much time smoking outside, on the mobile phone with social media, then the desired output is not achieved. That person is then in breach of contract. It must also be noted that during the normal functioning of an organization, employees need to take vacation time, our children get sick, we need to take family responsibility leave. And for such and other similar instances, there are standard procedures like your leave policy and your sick leave policy and the like. And this has to be spelled out in that policy that deals with the employee conduct. You cannot act against a person for absenteeism if the issue of absenteeism is not addressed in policy. So in terms of the policy provisions, whatever is in the policy has to comply with the Labour Relations Act. And in terms of the conduct at work, we want people to voluntarily comply, and that's why we inform them of what the policy says. The moment somebody is absent, let's say I don't pitch for work today, by this afternoon, my line, and I don't report, by this afternoon, my line manager should reach out and say, hey, Bernadine, where are you? If she gets no response and I don't pitch for work tomorrow, she's going to say, Bernadine, where are you? And if by day number 3, I report back, then I absented myself from work for a short period of time, but it's not yet absenteeism because it's not yet a practice. And then she can ask me, listen, you are now absent. You did not tell us where you are. What is your side of the story? Remember the audi alterum partem rule? Then I can tell her, you know what? We went away for the weekend. The car broke down in the middle of nowhere. We had no signal. One of the local people came and helped us. It took us 2 days to get out. And I'm really sorry. And when we got home at 12 o'clock last night, I really didn't feel it was good to then contact you. I thought that I would contact you first thing this morning. That would be an acceptable excuse, provided it doesn't happen every month, because you will be amazed how many people's cars break down on the way back from holiday. They never break down going to holiday or to family or to a funeral or to a wedding. They always break down on the way back. So look at that. If you are the investigator, it's so important you have to be familiar with the latest disciplinary policy. In some instances, absenteeism, a first offence, may be a dismissible offence. It all depends on where the person is working. And there are different sanctions for the different levels. For example, in the instance I gave you where I was stuck in the bundes, I could get a verbal warning, I could get a written warning. It all depends on what policy says in my company or in my space. What is absenteeism? So what does the policy in your company say? And what does it look like when it happens? Because on paper, it might seem like one thing, but in practice, what does it look like? Oh dear, I see the the image there is not very clear. Okay, so let's look at being absent does not only mean not being at work physically. It means not being at work mentally as well. So being absenteeism or being absent could imply arriving late, but we're talking about chronically, every day or every second day or every Monday or every Friday or every Wednesday. Leaving early, chronically, every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. Extending tea or lunch breaks. Attending to private business during working hours. How many of you sell tupper at your workplace? Is this permitted? Are you permitted to carry on business in work hours on work premises? Extending toilet breaks. Feigning illness. Phoning my line manager and telling her, I'm not feeling well today. I'm going to go to the doctor. I actually feel okay. I'm not going to go to the doctor. I just want today off. So Monday comes in, I didn't go to the doctor. It's less than 3 days. The policy says if I'm off for 3 days, I need to provide a doctor's note. Less than 3 days, you know what? I don't have to produce a doctor's note. I had a nice Friday doing nothing. And then an undue length of time in fetching or carrying equipment or tools or books or whatever the case might be, what your job is. Or other unexplained absences from your workstation or from the premises at which you work. So these are some of the ways in which it might manifest. So absenteeism is closely associated with poor timekeeping and the incapacity to do your work due to some medical condition. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're not talking about people who just don't know how to keep time or who have a medical condition. We are talking about absenteeism as a form of misconduct. In other words, can you remember what we said misconduct is? It's when your conduct misses the mark. So what is the mark? The mark says you must report to work at 8 and you leave at 4, and your conduct misses that mark. We find that employees tend to spend more and more time on social media, surfing the internet, playing games. So technically, they don't do anything wrong, but if you add the time spent on these little activities, it may amount to several hours. So your people are sitting behind the computer, but they're not working. So in the UNISA space, how absenteeism or being absent from work is explained is the absence from work, workstation, or designated area of work without permission or a valid reason, so that you are not there, is the deviation without permission or valid reason from a designated travel route or routine in a case of employee not bound to a single work site during a normal work period or official time. So in other words, I might have to travel between 2 campuses and I deviate from the route without permission or a valid reason. What a valid reason in such an instance would constitute, that is not clear. But if you are tasked to investigate, let's say 3.1 subsection 1, you are tasked to investigate my absence from work. I was not at work on Friday, 29 July. I was supposed to report at 8, and I did not come in. I didn't phone anybody. And now you have to investigate my absence. So what is it that you have to investigate? You must investigate the fact that I was absent from work. In other words, I didn't come to work at all. It could be that I was at work, but I wasn't at my workstation or in the designated area where I'm supposed to be. I'm at work, but I'm browsing around all the other places, talking to all the other people, keeping everybody out of work. So in my instance, I was absent from work. I wasn't physically at work. I did not have permission. And what was the valid reason? So you're going to have to prove my absence. You're going to have to prove that there wasn't permission, and you are going to have to look at the reason, if there was permission, or if they, what caused me to not be at work. And then the other one is reporting late for duty or absconding from duty early. So this is where you come to work, but you are late without authorization or valid reason. So now my question is, if I am dependent on public transport and the taxis strike, and I'm late for work this morning only, should my line manager have a talk with me about my reporting late for duty? I'm putting that question out there. And then the next one is leaving the work area before the normal end of day without authorization or valid reason. Now, this sometimes happens month end, where colleagues want to go pay a bill, or they've got to go and sort things out, let's say at the child's school. I know in some companies what they do is they give the mothers who have children at school the last Friday or the first Friday of the month off, depending on when the people got paid, to go and attend to family matters, like perhaps taking care of some of the children's things for school. In some instances, they also give workers off the first Friday after payday, so that you can go pay your bills and settle things that need to be paid, because then it's done. Then for the rest of the month, you can focus on work. And then unauthorized absence means absence of an employee without prior approval of the manager or supervisor. So this is just general, you are absent, you are not there. Now, how does one investigate such an allegation? Remember, it's always an allegation. We are a common law country. We abide by the rule of law. In our country, you are innocent until proven guilty. I think in North Korea and in Turkey, I speak under correction about Turkey. In North Korea, you are guilty until proven innocent. So now you must see, what does the policy say? What is it that you need to prove, and how are you going to prove this? So what does policy say? So let's take 3.11, absence from work. So let's say I wasn't at work today, then you will have to prove either with my I use an access card to access the campus, to take a log of all my swipes to say, okay, Bernadine, you weren't at work. Yeah, is the log for today. Okay, so there we've proven that you did not access the campus with your staff card. Did you have permission? You will get that from my line manager. My line manager will tell you, okay, Bernadine did not have permission to be absent from work. And then you will have to listen to my reason. So remember the audi alteram partem rule. You will always hear when a person offers an excuse for why they did what they did. In a court of law, you will always ask the accused, but why did you do what you do? And that is basically hearing, you have to hear the other person's side. So what is the allegation? What does the policy say? What do you need to prove? And how are you going to prove this? But I want us to pause and talk a little bit about what we said just now, being late for work. What about the human side? In a country like South Africa, where we have single mothers, single working mothers, where we have public transport that's not always reliable, we need to think about alternative dispute resolution. We need to think about restorative justice. We need to think about Ubuntu in these situations. So if you look at page 40 and 41 of your study guide, there are some examples of absenteeism. Now, you must ask yourself, in a workplace setting where we are trying to make practical the compliance, or looking after the elements of social justice, to what extent does our policy make provision for this? And if policy doesn't, perhaps it's time that the internal investigators start speaking to management, speaking to HR about social justice issues. Single mothers, yes, I realize that a company is not a charity, and one cannot continue to take into consideration the single working mother, but does it help society if the single working mother who has a sick child is late every now and then? So there's a pattern. Does it help to fire her? Does it help to reprimand her? It's going to make her negative. How does one help a person like that? For example, is it possible that she can work flexi hours? Is it possible that this single working mother who has to put in 8 hours can report for duty at 9 o'clock once her child has been sorted at school? Then she works from 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. She works until 3, that's 6 hours. And then she goes and sorts her child out. And then at home, she can put in the extra 2 hours. Is that not possible to look at something like that? I know to try and manage 3,000 people that want to do this, but not all 3,000 people have that challenge. So we need to have these conversations with both our line managers and HR to ask them, but to what extent can we go through a part of restorative justice to restore what was broken? To what extent is alternative dispute resolution an option instead of a stringent disciplinary hearing? You saw the ism explanation I gave previously. This is a reference where it comes from. So let's pause a moment and reflect on the following. Having gone through what we've gone through now, do you think you'll be able to identify conduct that amounts to absenteeism in the workplace? Do you think you'll be able to conduct an elementary investigation into an alleged absenteeism and make a recommendation for further action based on the incident? Remember what we said in study unit 2, the different levels of misconduct, very serious, serious and less serious. What would be the sanctions there? Would you have an investigation there? Do you think you'll be able to identify the different terms and concepts used? Absenteeism, without permission, valid excuse, the Audi alteram partem rule. How is absenteeism defined in the policy? And then, do you understand the importance of company guidelines and their value in proving misconduct in a workplace setting? Do you understand the fact that in terms of law, there has to be a policy in place before a person can be charged? The principle of legality. The rule must be in place before you can charge a person with misconduct. You cannot now say, oh, this person did A, B, and C. This should actually be misconduct. Let's write it into policy. You cannot do that. That is unlawful. Okay, and then if there were any questions, we would have dealt with them here. You are more than welcome to write to me on email and send me your questions about this presentation and this class. So I hope you enjoyed the class, and I hope you will join us for the next session, which we will circulate via your My Life email and via the module site.